Welcome to AltStuffTv. Please subscribe, put on the notifications. We're about to get into the stories. Just want to thank you for tuning in. And here we go. You are now listening to Screepy Series. My name's Rebecca, and I've recently started working for a food delivery app. My college courses were interrupted from in-school classes because of this ailment that struck the world. I had a lot of extra time and wanted to make some extra cash. At first, everything was great. I was making good money, helping the community eat, and having minimum interactions with people because most people would choose the leave the food at door option. After about a month or so in, something very strange started to happen. Every time I would set the GPS to go home at the end of the day, the GPS was always automatically changing my address to another one. This would happen practically every day. I'd be ending a shift and preparing to reroute my GPS home. I was using an app that everyone I know uses. It wasn't just some random GPS that you would buy for a car. It was a typical one everyone uses on their Android. During online classes, my friend Amy messaged me telling me she's bored and wanted to hang after class. I decided to invite her to keep me company while I worked and made deliveries and that I wouldn't be able to hang otherwise. She was into the idea, and so I picked her up and we went on our way. We hadn't hung out much since the city's been in lockdown and on and off for quite a long time, so when we got in the car in the first hour of us driving around, we hit a roller coaster of emotions. We sung, we danced, we cried, we lied, we told truths and more. It was like a slumber party on wheels. After a whirlwind of emotions flaring, and Amy started staring, and she went quiet for a while. I looked over and she was sucking on a lollipop, zoned out. I asked her what's wrong. Amy stared, zoned and out, and all of a sudden started giggling frantically like a joker. She told me the lollipop is a weed edible and handed it to me. As we made our way to our next destination, which was a restaurant we both frequented, being young adults who enjoy burritos any hour of the day, Amy said we should take a break after we made this delivery and get some burritos ourselves. This particular restaurant was bringing their orders out to the customer's car for pickup, and so we kicked back waiting, with our windows down, enjoying the weather, as Amy puffed away on her electrical cigarette, or as many call it, vaping. The car filled with fruity and musky smells, and before I could say anything, Amy hits me on the arm ever so gently and says, "Hey, look, you see that guy coming out from the coffee shop next to the burrito place?" She explained that she's been talking to this new guy from school through private messaging on the online classes we'd been taking. The guy was tall, dark, and handsome, and he was getting into his vehicle as I yelled out the window, "Hey, sweetie boy!" Amy ducked into the floors like her life depended on it and tried pulling me down with her. The guy she's been talking to looked around and got in his car and left. Amy got up whining and complaining why I would do such a thing. After a few more deliveries and tons of laughs later, it was getting to the end of the night. Once we got to Amy's house to drop her off, she told me she wanted to go to work with me again one of these days. And I agreed it was quite fun and we make a date for it to happen again. I rerouted my GPS even though I know how to get home from Amy's place and made my way home. When I got back to my home and was relaxing and watching a brainless reality show on my computer, I realized that today the GPS didn't randomly suggest that address it's always rerouting to. I was thinking maybe it was because Amy was with me and she's just a good luck charm is all. The next day I was back at it again, on the road making deliveries and enjoying a new playlist I made. I was really missing Amy's company, but the playlist I created was keeping my spirits up. After a while, I got a call from an unknown number. The person on the phone was breathing heavy and said, "Why haven't you visited me?" I was quite confused because it wasn't anyone I know, and I replied, "Who's this? I think you have the wrong number." The person on the other end of the phone said, "You must visit me. Why don't you visit me?" A few days passed and I didn't go out for deliveries, and I just doubled down my time on schoolwork. About a week later, I got a call from Amy asking if I wanted company whilst I worked. I let her know that I haven't been working lately and just focusing on schoolwork. She convinced me to see her, and I figured I should make some money on the way there and back. She hopped in the car and was sucking on a lollipop. I asked her if it's an edible, the perfect sweet for stoners. She claimed it was, and that if I wanted one, she had extra in her bag. I refused the offer and told her I'm making deliveries at the moment, and she was excited to tag along. We sung along to tunes, giggled like schoolgirls, and had a great old time together. Amy zoned out for a moment and said, "Hey Becky, let's get some food already. I'm starving over here." I replied with, "Your Royal Highness, would you like a burrito to go with everything, you high-class citizen?" We laughed out loud and she agreed. Once we arrived at the burrito place, we got our food and opened up the trunk in the back of the car and ate our food there. The music was still playing and we were munching away on our burritos. It was getting time to call it a night, and I was rerouting to Amy's house, and the GPS randomly went to the strange address that it defaults to when I'm going home. I was like, "Look, Amy, look, this is what I've been telling you about. It's so messed up. Why does it always do this when I'm going home?" Amy laughed and told me we should visit the place and see what's actually there. I told her it's not happening and got her home and enjoyed the rest of the night in a pretty jolly mood. Now, a few weeks later, I was cleaning out my car in between deliveries and found a candy wrapped by the passenger seat. I was getting an inkling in my sweet tooth, so I unwrapped it and went at it, like a junkie on a Sunday afternoon. I got 2 more deliveries in before I noticed I was high as a kite. I put 2 and 2 together and realized this candy must have been one of Amy's and that I'm going to be in for it. So right there and then I had to stop with the deliveries and make my way to my house in one piece before the edibles got any stronger. I rerouted the GPS and made my way, and was contemplating what I should eat, and if I should cut my hair, and if I will ever find love, and thoughts kept racing. I pulled over at a gas station to get an energy drink because I was getting way too high, and I knew it. After hanging out at the gas station for what felt like an entire lifetime, I started to feel less paranoid about things and started feeling more like myself. So I decided to pull up my socks and do a few more hours of work to make it worth it for even leaving my home. I was getting through it like a breeze, and I was dropping off a peculiar order. It was only hot sauce and a bottle of wine, but who am I to judge? And so I arrived at the doorstep. This particular order involved alcohol, so I'd have to check the ID at the door to make sure the person's of age. When I made it to the door, I rung the doorbell, and from a speaker comm, someone sounds very old said, "Excuse me, I'm having trouble getting to the door. Could you be a dear and come in? I'm very elderly man here." I opened the door and walked inside. There was nobody to be seen. I yelled, "Hello, I've opened the door. Where are you? I have your order here." I heard a crash and yell. It sounded like the old man fell. As soon as I ran towards the noise, I ended up in a kitchen, but nobody was there. I thought this has gone way too far. I need to leave and maybe call the cops to be safe. I left the drink and sauce on the kitchen table and yelled, "I left your food on the table. Where are you? Do you need help? I'm calling the police." As I went for the front door, it was bolted shut with the padlock. Now, I've seen enough scary movies and true crime shows to know that if I don't find a way out quick, I'm doomed. I yelled, "This isn't funny! What are you doing? Let me out! I'm calling the police!" I darted to the back of the house towards the kitchen, where there was an exit to the backyard, and it had a padlock on it as well. I was dialing out to 911, but it wasn't connecting. In a panicked state, I ran into the pantry and kept trying to call for the police. All of a sudden, I heard someone say, "You decided to visit me after all." I squealed and cried. The voice was of nobody I knew, But then all of a sudden I heard Amy's voice scream, "Help, Becky! Help! Get help!" As soon as I heard her, I came over with rage and emotion and courage and busted the pantry open and looked for Amy. I walked out of the kitchen towards the front of the house where there was a living room to the left if you were entering, which was on my right, to find Amy tied up in a chair with her hair shaved off. She was crying and struggling to get free, and behind her stood the boy she met during her online classes that she'd been DMing with, the one she told me about not too long ago. Now, the guy had told me that he hacked my phone and has been trying to get me to visit him for weeks. He explained that he's been following me and is in love with me from the first time he laid his eyes on me. "You're a disgusting fool. I don't know who the hell you are." He cracked open the bottle of wine and poured it over Amy. As she struggled and cried, I couldn't help but say the most cliche thing possible. "You're never going to get away with this." He laughed and said, "I will get away with everything," and kissed Amy on the cheek. I was petrified and in shock, but I was on high alert. He hadn't come towards me yet. My mind was racing with ideas, but I tried to keep my cool. What this crazy man standing next to my best friend didn't realize was I picked up a huge knife from the kitchen, and it was tucked in my pants behind my back, and if it came down to it, I was ready to use it, no problem. He smirked and told me high tales of us living together on his ranch, and we'd live off the land, me, him, and my best friend. He explained how we'll be free from the world and we can together forever be in bliss, and all I had to do was agree and we'd be on our way. I smiled and told him that would be great and that it couldn't have sounded better. All I wanted was my best friend untied and we can sort this out. The man was so happy to hear I agreed. He lunged at me with a gaping look, wide eyes, going in for affection. Rebecca pulled out the knife from her back and sliced the unknown man with 2 strikes of the blade, swinging right to left and then back left to right. Although they weren't life-threatening wounds, she kept her knife straight and pointed at the fella. The man put up his hands and arms to cover himself during the attack and was bleeding profusely from both hands and arms. Covering himself in pity, he yelled, "I thought you loved me. I thought our love was strong." He ran out of the room as I, Rebecca, slowly moved out of the way, and this unknown man went downstairs to which was the basement, I thought. I went over and consulted with Amy and made sure she's okay before cutting the ropes that she was tied up in. I located Amy's purse and used her phone to contact the police. When they arrived, they knocked down the front door and opened and searched the whole house. I told them what happened and that the man ran down to the basement. Come to find out, the place was a rental property and the family who owned the place lived halfway across the country. Whoever that man was, he'd been squatting at the place for months. The police found printed pictures of me all over the basement with cutouts of women from magazines as well all over the place, and I don't know anybody who buys magazines nowadays. But well, someone managed to record a class during Amy's online classes, and so the cops did have a picture to go by and quite a bit of evidence in the basement from what I gathered. I quit my delivery job for now though, and Amy is in such a serious mood nowadays. Maybe time will get her back to her jolly self. I can only hope. And for the unknown delusional man that put us through this whole ordeal, he's still at large, and if he were ever to try something again, I'll make sure I finish the job this time. Thank you for watching or listening. Follow us on Instagram, Twitter, and SoundCloud, and we also have a Patreon.